tech is just so exciting. It's just so transformative. When organizations embark on a journey of digital transformation, it's a real opportunity to look at everything from the guiding values of the organization and how people within the organization and roles within the organization interact.
In tech, there's always, something that you can create. There's a creative process to it that allows you to really build something that you truly, it's your true vision together and can solve a problem, right? And so that's the part that I absolutely love about tech. Hello, everybody. I'm your host, CEO and co-founder of LaunchCode, Alberio Batterfrota, and welcome to another session of Launchcast. Today, I'm pretty excited to have with me Shannon van der Meulen. She is the co-founder and CMO of Waitwell. It's a company that's based out of Calgary, Alberta, and it's a really exciting one because I've seen some of their trajectory and how they've started, and it's pretty similar to some of the things that we have done before. What's interesting about this company is that they actually handle and manage people's time while they're waiting in the lineup, which is pretty significant because there was a study that was done out of the United States that says that 37 billion hours every year are spent in a lineup by the population down there. So what if you could turn that around and actually create some sort of value for it for the organization? And I'm excited to have her on board today here with us so that we can talk a little bit more about how she did that, as well as how she started, some of the challenges that she had, and what's looking great for the future. Well, thanks once again for being here with us. So before we talk directly about the company and what you're doing these days, why don't you tell me a little bit, or tell us a little bit about your journey and what gave you this wonderful idea?
Well, thanks for that. Well, if people who are listening from outside of Alberta might not be aware of this, but in Alberta, motor vehicle services, as well as vital statistics, corporate registry, Alberta Health Services, are all delivered on behalf of the provincial government by a network of private registry agents. And I was one of those 220 registry agents in Alberta. We had a really busy office. We served more than 100,000 customers every single year. And so we always had challenges with lineups, but also with making sure that people got to the right place at the right time, that they had the right documents with them, that they were prepared for service when they got there. And I always thought that there had to be a better way of making sure that people arrived to the right place at the right time and that they were prepared for service when they got there, so that we could make service more efficient, more comfortable, and less stressful for staff. And so a few years ago, back in 2015, actually, I started looking to see if there were some software solutions that could really help me to streamline service operations in our office. And there just didn't seem to be anything that had the right functionality. Digital transformation is tough. Mm-hmm. It's hard. Mm-hmm. It's hard to get people to change the way that they operate. And I felt that if we were going to go through all the pain of transforming our operations, we needed to offer something more than just getting rid of lineups. So we kind of put it on the back burner. It just seemed like it wasn't the right place at the right time. And then, of course, COVID changed all of that. When COVID hit, we were struggling with really long lineups and a really stressful situation for people, for the customers and the staff in our office, because people all of a sudden became very concerned with physical distancing and capacity within public places. And so that's where the idea for Waitwell came from. I thought, if people are standing there in line looking at their phones anyways, why not let them keep track of their wait time on the phone and come in just when it's their turn? And so that's where the idea for Waitwell came from.
That's pretty cool. So it's interesting because there's degrees out there that you can get pretty much on queue management systems,
yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And figuring out how to make an experience more pleasurable for the customer when they're waiting for their service. So you're sitting there, you're looking at this lineup out there. COVID exacerbates what you're seeing. Mm-hmm. Now you have this idea, it's going to work. What gave you the spark? Like, what made you want to go to that next level and say, I actually, I want to build something?
Well, I think it's just kind of my nature. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm really obsessed with processes and efficiency. I always like to break things down into parts. I actually have a background in teaching.
Okay.
I always jokingly call myself an accidental entrepreneur. I never meant to go into being an entrepreneur, but my background is in teaching. I have a degree in teaching, and I taught for a number of years. And so as a teacher, it's really natural to want to break things down into their smaller parts and figure out how to sequence learning into a process that makes sense for people. And I think that's where a lot of my desire to build something came from. I could see what the start point and what the end point would be for our business. I'm also really lucky that I happen to be married to somebody who's spent the last 25 years bringing software products to market.
Oh, really?
And had a lot of connections and experience with that. And so I brought the idea to him, wrote the business case. He tore it apart. I had to rewrite it several times. But eventually it was compelling enough that he was willing to take it to a developer that he'd worked with before. And the three of us came together and said, well, let's just try it and see what happens.
That's pretty neat. So was Waitwell your first venture that you were involved with and entrepreneurial?
Well, in the software space, yes. Yeah. So I had owned and operated East Calgary Registry, which is where Waitwell was born. We had a spa, a float spa that we started and ran together for a few years. But this was my first software venture.
That's pretty neat. And so you're on the entrepreneurial journey. You have a few companies you're working on, but at a certain point, that tech bug bit you, like it kind of does with a lot of organizations, right? Getting into the tech space. Tell me a little bit about, not coming from the tech field. Maybe, if you had experience on that, tell us a little bit about that. But if you didn't, like, how did you transition your business experience into building a tech company?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's the same and it's different. The thing that is so exciting about tech is how scalable it is. When you build a software solution, particularly SaaS, the world is your oyster. You can go anywhere with it. There's, borders don't really matter anymore. And so that's really, really exciting. And if you can build your software solution in such a way that it applies to a number of different industries, then the scale is infinite, which is, so much different than having, a spa or a motor vehicle registry, which is, has a very local, it's localized and you can really only go so far outside of your borders. So to me, that was the really compelling thing about SaaS. And I probably should have been scared. Like I probably should have had more of a sense of, who do I think I am? I don't have background in this, but I think that's just not my nature to second guess or to wonder if I can do something. And so I was pretty comfortable to jump right in.
Yeah, and you almost have to believe in something and have that, almost no fear.
Yes.
Sometimes, and in my own experience, I almost call it ignorance and thinking that it's going to be easier than what it actually is, because then you just get started, right? And you get going. Oh, that's pretty cool. So now you've got this idea, you want to build this company. You said you hired a developer. How do you engage that developer? Do you have a product owner or somebody that can actually figure out exactly your vision that you want to build? Or are you now wearing that hat? Are you being part of that, that communication into what to build next?
Right. I think that was really the key to our success, is that we're actually co-founders together. So it's myself, my husband, Steve Vandermeulen, who's our CEO, as well as our CTO, who's the developer. And the three of us really had very complementary skill sets. So I had a lot of service expertise in service operations. And Steve Vandermeulen had a lot of experience in commercializing software, building, writing out product requirements. And our CTO is, really great has sort of the full scope of skills, like everything full stack, front end, back end, all of that. So the three of us worked together really well. One of the things that we did early on is we kept it very, very simple. So what we built initially had, probably 10%, maybe even less than 10% of the functionality that our product has right now. But it was enough to put it into market and start testing it and get customers to interact with it. And I think that was one of the sort of keys to our early success.
Yeah, that's a very, very valid point. Because a lot of times, especially if there isn't a tremendous amount of experience with tech, you kind of want to create the solution that's all encompassing, right? So it's pretty interesting to hear that, the combination of you and the other two partners basically created a role that became that product, and was able to create a product market fit right off the bat. Because from my research, you guys were successful right away, right?
Yeah, we were. So we actually, it's kind of funny. We actually got our first customers before we even launched our website.
Wow.
And we didn't even have a way to take payment yet.
Crazy.
What happened is that we started using it at our registry, and it was immediately successful, which was actually really surprising. I expected to get more pushback from customers. But they really liked it right away. It was the height of summer. It was August. It was really hot. And they were so appreciative that they could go sit in their air-conditioned car rather than having to stand outside on the hot sidewalk. So that was great. Initially, we had, people using it, people liking it. And what happened was that there were people who, we call this the network effect. So there were people who came in and used it as customers and then told somebody they knew that could use it. So one woman came in and her husband happens to be an accountant, and he happens to be the accountant for another registry.
Oh, perfect.
And so this accountant told this other registry about the solution. So we got a phone call saying, hey, what are you using, and can we use it too?
Oh, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah. My partner said to me, you have to understand this isn't normal. You don't expect that this is always the way that it goes when you roll out software. And we learned, and it did slow down. We did, we got to the point where a few months later we were having to be much more proactive about going out and getting customers. But the first few months were pretty easy.
That's pretty awesome. Yeah, it's not normal. That's definitely not normal. The fact that you guys had people wanting to pay right off, before the product was even built, before you could accept money on your website is amazing. That's a problem I think every founder wishes they had.
Yeah. Well, it comes down to timing. People talk about what makes a successful entrepreneur, what makes a successful software product, and for obviously the product is important, the UX is important, solving an actual need in business need is important. There's a lot of luck and a lot of timing involved as well. There's a lot of really, really smart people that have really great ideas, and it's just not quite the right time.
Yeah. So now we're 3 years into the organization, right?
Yes.
And still fairly new, but quite successful. Within the 3 years, what's the biggest challenge you've seen so far?
I think one of the challenges has been finding people. We have been really lucky, and we do have a really amazing group, but it's been a bit of a slog to find the right people. Not everybody is built for startup life, and not everybody's interested in joining a startup. And especially when you're nobody, when nobody's heard of you yet, it's really hard to convince people to come on this really, perilous journey with you. So that was a challenge that we had early on. And then I would say from a marketing perspective, if people are looking for our solution, if they're aware that they have a problem that could be addressed through queue management, then it's easy. But creating that demand and creating that awareness when people aren't necessarily looking for your solution yet is a challenge.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, the people, I can totally resonate with that one. The people challenge is a hard one here, especially in our market, right, in our backyard. However, with COVID and the advent of working from home, that challenge is becoming a little bit less. Is your team mostly here based out of Calgary? Do you have any remote workers?
We are 100% in Calgary.
Okay.
Yeah, we've kind of gone against that trend. We do have a hybrid work model, so people do have flexibility to work from home, but we really value the in-person collaboration and that magic and that spark that happens when people are in the same room and they're sharing a joke and going for pizza. We think that that's really, really important. And so it's kind of funny, we were actually very open to being quite hybrid initially. And at one point I found somebody that I just really wanted on my team. My gut just told me this is somebody who's going to make a big difference for this company. And he flat out told me, he said, I can't work in my living room anymore. I'm sorry, I'm going to have to turn you down because I want to go into an office and I want to have that in-person collaboration. And it was really that moment that was a turning point for our company. And I said, that's the person that we need. And we're on the fence as well about whether to be in-person, hybrid, or remote. And that was really a turning point for us. And so, from there, it was just kind of no looking back. So I'm not saying that, going forward that we won't have people remote or people in other locations. But right now, we're really committed to being a Calgary company that has Calgary people.
That's pretty cool. And you guys are getting quite your name out there quite a bit too. We've seen it through awards. You guys have won awards.
Thank you.
You've raised some funds recently as well.
Yes.
So congratulations.
Thank you.
What's the trajectory like? What are you expecting the next year, 2 years, 3 years?
Well, our goal is to double every year.
Oh, wow, that's
we're
great.
exceptionally excited about what we have in the pipeline right now. I won't go into any details about names, but we've been really heavily focused this year on higher education and public service delivery. So, for example, police offices, RCMP, municipal permit offices, those kind of places. We've had a lot of success in that. We've really learned a lot from them about what their problems are, what kind of solutions they're looking for. And our next focus is really going to be to go after private healthcare.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Some people don't like it if I ask too deep a questions into the business, so feel free to not answer this one. But what's your monetization strategy? How are you guys generating your revenue? And
yeah, it's a subscription model. So we're really we are built for enterprise. Mm-hmm. So we do a really good job of working with organizations that have dozens, hundreds, even thousands of separate locations that all need to be managed from one place, but might all have unique workflow or unique hours or unique service delivery models, and so they might all need to be configured somewhat differently, but at the same time they need to be managed from one spot. Mm-hmm. That's what we really excel at. We do really well, so we're really focused on enterprise, and so it's a subscription model, and we tend to go with an annual or sometimes even multi-year deals. Cool. And we build out a workflow and estimate usage and build a proposal based on that.
Okay.
So that's where we've gone. There's other competitors that have gone more to the sort of monthly subscription, put your credit card in and get charged every month, and we've decided to sort of focus on the enterprise annual subscription model. Right
on. And have you guys thought about, or do you monetize the end consumer at all, the person that's actually in the lineup?
Oh, stay tuned.
Yeah?
Yeah, we have lots of ideas about how we can add value in terms of collecting payment. Mm-hmm. Perhaps giving people the opportunity to pay a little more to be served first. So those are some of the ideas that we're playing around with, and we're really going to take our direction from our customers, because our customers are going to be the ones to say whether they think that would be of value and whether it aligns with their business models.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's interesting because there's a parallel there with our company PatronScan, right? Because while it's our customers, the actual venues that are paying the monthly subscription, we actually touch millions. Right now we're touching 1 million people every week, right? So there's different monetization opportunities there as well that we've batted around and we've attempted with. From your guys' side, how many people have you saved time, or do you have a metric of how much time have you saved for people in lineups?
We do. I think so. The last I checked was yesterday, and actually I think we were at 2.25 million hours of wait time that we've served, and we've had, I think it's around 7 million people that have gone through Waitwell.
Wow.
That have been able to skip standing in the line because they used our virtual queue system.
Yeah, that's huge, saving that amount of time. That's great. That's in, so you guys are fully through North America. Anywhere else in the world you're thinking of expanding?
Canada and the US. I mean, the US is such a great market because it's, same language, similar time zones, 10 times the people that we have here in Canada. So that's really where we're focused on right now. We have had interest from South America, from Europe, from Asia. So I'm sure eventually that we'll set our sights there. But right now we're pretty happy going after the US market.
All right. So one stat that I saw somewhere is that Alberta actually has more women tech founders than the national average.
Hooray.
Yeah. Is there anything specific about Alberta? Are they doing anything to support? Give me your perspective on that.
It's hard for me to compare because I haven't been to other provinces. So I'm not sure what's happening in other provinces. There are a lot of organizations in Alberta that are really helping to promote everybody in tech. Some of the organizations that we've worked with here in Calgary were, for example, Startup TNT was phenomenal for us. We won their investment summit for.
Oh wow!
That
Congrats.
was amazing exposure, and Of the 5 finalists, 3 of the companies were women founded and women led.
Oh, wow. That's fantastic.
Yeah. Alberta Women Entrepreneurs is an organization that I've had some contact with and gone through their programming. Alberta Innovates. There's definitely a focus on helping to promote startups that are women led, women founded, and also from other diverse populations as well. So I think that makes a difference. But there's more. I know that Alberta leads when it comes to women, on the percentage of entrepreneurs who are women as well. So it just makes sense that there would be more Alberta women tech founders as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's we're seeing it quite a bit as well. And it's interesting. We were talking a little bit before about even just the sheer amount of tech companies in Alberta nowadays, right? I was mentioning that when we moved here 12 years ago, it was mostly oil and gas companies. When we used to go to the career fairs, it was oil and gas, and there was a few tech companies that you'd see. And nowadays, that's completely reversed, right? So which has been fantastic for our industry. In your experience now that you've had other businesses that were non-tech, and now you're running this tech business, what do you prefer? Is there something that you really enjoy about one style of business versus a tech, or vice versa? Is tech for you for the rest of your life now?
Yeah, I think that some people are built for startup life and some people are built for corporate life. And I definitely feel that I'm built for startup life. I don't, when you work for a really mature organization like, an oil and gas company, for example, they're so large and the roles become so specialized. When you work for a startup, whether you're the founder or whether you're hire number 35, it's much more likely that you're going to get to do work that touches a lot of different aspects of the business. And for me, that's really exciting. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's a bit overwhelming when I'm doing, HR in the morning and marketing in the afternoon, and then, signing a lease for our new office space in the evening. It can feel a bit sort of disjointed, but I'm not the kind of person that would enjoy doing a smaller, more focused role exclusively and not having exposure to the rest of the company.
So with your experience in your entrepreneurial experience with other businesses that were, non-tech, for example, the registry business, versus now in Waitwell, what is your preference? Do you enjoy one style of business versus the other, tech versus a not tech business?
I think tech is just so exciting. It's just so transformative. When organizations embark on a journey of digital transformation, it's a real opportunity to look at everything from the guiding values of the organization and how people within the organization and roles within the organization interact. So to me, tech is just really exciting. I can't really imagine not working in tech now that I've done it.
Yeah, it's cool because there's no challenge that cannot be solved. Also, right?
True.
That's I always feel that way. Whereas maybe a traditional business, you can't just try to whip something up to solve a solution.
Right.
In tech, there's always something that you can create. There's a creative process to it that allows you to really build something that you truly it's your true vision together and can solve a problem, right? And so that's the part that I absolutely love about tech. Let's talk, I guess, about the future for Waitwell, and what is your 10,000 foot level view of where you'd love this company to be and for it to be doing?
Well, our vision is not necessarily about eliminating lineups, and people often, and it's partly because of the name that we chose, Waitwell. The initial problem that we were trying to solve was to get rid of lineups. But we really see what we're doing as being much, much bigger than that. And really what we like to think about is that we are making service better for everyone. We're making service better for customers, we're making service better for frontline service providers, and we're making service work better for organizations by helping them to what we like to call illuminating operations. So we're providing them with really deep analytics into their service operations so that they can understand better than they ever have, how long does service take? How long do people wait? How many people leave without being served? Where are there training opportunities so that we can do things better? So our focus isn't just on getting rid of lineups. Our focus is really on streamlining service operations. And so we see a lot of opportunity for developing new products or new modules within our product that help organizations to deliver service better.
Mm-hmm. That's pretty cool. Do you find there's a difference in your customer base when you're dealing with, for example, enterprise versus the smaller businesses out there, in how you provide that service, or even the appetite for the product?
That's a really good question. The sales cycle looks a lot different. When you're dealing with larger organizations, things can move really, really slow, like glacially slow. Whereas when you're dealing with smaller businesses where the decision maker is closer to the problem, then things tend to happen much more quickly. But, at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter whether you're, a small corner store pharmacy or your Shoppers Drug Mart. You are really invested in making sure that the customer experience is as smooth and transparent as possible, and that you're getting the information that you need about your customers, giving them information while they're waiting, and really helping to sort of streamline that customer experience.
So, having experience in the tech industry and being part of different startups, and including, the first startup where it's always so hard to get that first few clients, and get that momentum client after client. You guys, bucked that trend. You did pretty awesome. You got on, you started, you got a bunch of clients, you got the momentum going, you're winning awards, you're raising funds, your name is getting out there. It's a phenomenal trajectory that you guys have. So on that note, tell us a little bit about your secrets. Do you have any advice for budding entrepreneurs that are looking to get out there and do the same thing?
Maybe do as I say, not as I do, or no, I'm joking. I would say that if you have an entrepreneurial dream, I think the best thing that you can do for yourself is to work for a startup. And I'm a big believer that it's not so much about the job that you do there, what your position is, what your title is. It's really more important who you report to and how close you get to be to the decision making. Because if you find yourself in the right startup at the right stage and you're close enough to the decision making, there's so much learning that just goes so far beyond anything that you would ever learn if you did an MBA. So I think that's the best advice that I would give to budding entrepreneurs is spend a few years in the trenches, pick a really, really good company, pick some people that you think you can learn from, and think of it as your second degree. And on that note, we are hiring. We're always hiring, but we've got a couple of roles open right now, and there's a lot of great tech companies throughout Canada, in Calgary, throughout North America, doing really great work. So take some time to research them, find out who's solving a problem that you're actually really interested in, that you think you could spend a few years working with. Research them, really find out what their journey's been like, what problems they solve, who they solve those problems for, and and go after jobs in those companies really well informed and really understanding what they are doing and how you could help them.
I love it. I love that, and I totally resonate with that. I did my MBA, and I can tell you the best lessons I've ever had was in the business. And it's funny you said that, because that's a sentiment I also have, and especially for people that are younger in their journey and they're looking to be an entrepreneur. Like, take a few years and join a startup with 2, 3, 5, 10 people. That is the best way to learn what's happening.
Let it be your boot camp.
Exactly. There's no better lesson than that. Which I find interesting too is that some of the people that do join our organization and did join our organization when we were smaller as well, they always had that entrepreneurial bug. Right? They kind of had that mentality, and they actually were some of our best team members. The ones that joined us that, had their own ideas already, or maybe they dabbled with something, or they tried to start something. They actually were the ones that fit in the best as well, right? So on that note, anybody out there that's looking to join an exciting organization that has a phenomenal trajectory, go to waitwell.ca and look under the career section, and there will be something there for you.
Great, thank you.
So yeah, this has been a fantastic conversation, Shannon. Thank you for joining us, and I really love you sharing us your experience, and your actual journey, the success of your journey. So thank you for joining us in this innovation series.
Thank you. I've enjoyed it as well. I appreciate it.